Welcome to this Hughes From The Heart free edition. That's right, it's free once in a while. I can't give the whole candy store away, so I don't do them that often. But you're getting a free podcast right now, you cheapskates. I'm just kidding you, for goodness sakes. There's a whole variety of reasons why you may not have joined Hughes From The Heart. Maybe you don't even know about it. So I'm telling you about my podcast. It's a positivity podcast focusing on health and wellness topics, minimalism, meditation, mindfulness, the law of attraction, self-empowerment, the power of the subconscious mind, and a focus on positive news stories of good people doing good things in a good world. And we're going to talk about, once again, this is a topic I explore every once in a while, how your brain and your mind and your soul and your health is rotting away because of overdosing on the coronavirus news out there and the doom and gloom coming at you from the mainstream media sources that all along have wanted to scare the living tar out of you. That's why now they're talking about murder hornets, and that's not getting much traction. So if you noticed, murder hornets aren't exactly trending anymore because you didn't fall for it. You didn't fall for it. They want you to be afraid of going, they want you to be afraid of everything. It's unbelievable. Now, the restrictions are being eased and you're able to go outside more. They want to scare you to go back inside because of murder hornets. You're not going to die from a murder hornet. And chances are you're not going to die from COVID-19 either. The death rate continues to plunge, thank God. I mean, that's good news, I think. Some people are moaning and groaning that it's not true, that the death rate's going up. Why would you want to think the death rate's going up when all the evidence is showing the opposite? As more people are tested, as we're finding out, millions of people worldwide probably have it and will continue to get it and be just fine. The more people are tested, the more people that survive it, the more the death rate plunges. It's now estimated to be, I think, about it's less than 1%. People were saying it's 5%, it's 5% death rate. It's less than 1%, and it continues to fall. That's good. We should be happy about that. The mainstream media doesn't want that news getting out there because they prefer you scared and fit to be tied. And that's when they get you glued to the television screen. When you're scared, when you're hopeless, when you're anxious, that tends to be when you go for the information binging and overload and overdosing of COVID-19 news. So there are more cases, but it's bringing the death rate down. Okay. It's like if they find that a certain bee's sting kills people, but then they found out, wow, 1 million more people got stung by the bee, but only 5 of them died from it. That, in the whole scheme of things, is good news because fewer people are dying from it. The more people are tested, we see that. But the media, again, feeds on your insecurities. It always has. It always has. There's a reason why we have the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. That came from somewhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. It came from somewhere. It's not a stereotype either. If it bleeds, it leads. It's always been the case, at least for the longest time. And if you look at even old newspaper sensationalism won the day. If somebody stabs somebody in an alleyway in old San Francisco, boy, that was sensationalized even then. Made you afraid to go down an alley. Made you afraid to go outside. So it's been going on, this pattern, for a very, very long time. And it's leading to less sleep than ever before for a lot of people. More stress during the day, more anxiety in your sleep at night. People having all sorts of kooky, weird, vivid nightmares because of COVID-19 fears. And the media creates this fight or flight response in us. And our body is constantly dealing with this perceived threat that the next doorknob we touch could be the end of us. That the next person who coughs in the next room could be the end of us. I see so many posts of people angry that somebody sneezed. I mean, sometimes people will sneeze. Hopefully they covered their mouth. But people are going to sneeze, and you can't throw them in jail for sneezing, even in public. People are going to sneeze. Past evidence, this is from Huffington Post. Past evidence demonstrates that when the brain is shown images of something potentially traumatic, the centers of the brain that are responsible for fear response light up. And the centers of brain that are related to the development of PTSD light up, according to Allison Holman, a psychologist and associate professor of nursing at the University of California, Irvine. So what happens is when you expose yourself, as many people are, I know that you're binge watching a lot of Netflix which is preferable to binge watching the network news for sure. But when you constantly expose yourself to anxiety-inducing news, these stressors, they're making the brain perceive a threatening, stressful event, not just once or once in a while, but like all the time, over and over and over again. This could take a major toll on your health. And Colin Reif is a psychiatrist at NYU Langone Health and says if you're repeatedly exposed to that stressor, it can lead to a depressed mood, it can lead to insomnia, fatigue, and decline in concentration. Now, Holman has studied the media's role in past disasters and epidemics and pandemics and said that the more people engage with high-stress media, the more likely they are to report higher levels of acute stress and anxiety. I mean, there's no denying this. The media is making you crazy. The media is making you so worried. You're losing sleep. You're losing concentration. You're not nice to be around because you're always anxious and afraid. With the 2014 Ebola crisis, people who consumed more media about the outbreak experienced higher levels of distress and worry than those who viewed less Ebola-related news. Now, you could say, well, these people are in denial, man. We can't be in denial. You got to watch the news. Well, yeah, you have to be informed, absolutely. You have to be informed, but there is an argument that people are being over-informed. And it's not even really information. It's just headlines. It's headlines when they say, like, cases are skyrocketing. Well, the cases don't necessarily mean death for all, okay? It doesn't mean that at all. And I use this analogy a lot. I'm the only one that I've ever heard use this one, so I'll keep using it. I think it's a good one. It would be as if the networks told you zoo animals escape. 100 zoo animals escaped from the local zoo. Now, that's the scandalous headline. 100 zoo animals escaped from the local zoo. My first immediate question as a rational thinking being would be, are we talking about prairie dogs? Did 100 prairie dogs escape? Did 100 penguins escape? Or are we talking about lions and bears and tigers and rhinos and elephants? Right? I mean, I want to know if these escaped animals were chipmunks and penguins or if they were lions and bears. I mean, it's a reasonable question, but the headline itself, if I told you a headline right now, let's say you lived in the vicinity or worked in the vicinity of a local zoo and your spouse madly texts you a 911 text saying, be careful. There's escaped animals from the zoo. You're 5 minutes from there. Be careful, right? The headline. That's all we know right now is that animals escaped. Well, they almost shouldn't even report that until they can tell you what animals they are. They're going to create all sorts of panic and pandemonium. Anywhere near the zoo, people are going to be freaking out that there's a tiger running around when it could just be a prairie dog or a penguin. A report looking at 9/11 found that people who viewed several hours of TV a day had a higher risk of post-traumatic stress symptoms and new physical health problems, predominantly with the heart. Research on the Boston Marathon bombing showed that acute stress symptoms were highest among people who consume the most news, even compared with people who actually witnessed the bombings firsthand. Amazing. Think about that. People who were at the scene witnessing the actual catastrophe felt less stress than the people who were watching it on the television. According to Holman, what people see matters just as much as how much news they watch. Her research on the Boston Marathon bombings discovered that the more gruesome and graphic the coverage, the more distress and impaired functioning people experienced. And we get trapped in this cycle, this endless cycle of news consumption. We go crazy. I mean, it's insane. It's like we want to be miserable. We want to know what the latest death and destruction and disease and where it is on the planet. We have to know. At any given second, we want to know where death, disease, and destruction are taking place. People get stuck in this vicious cycle, and it can make you, and I don't say this playfully, it can make you insane. It can make you crazy if you let it. And over time, excess exposure to stressful media can lead to chronic anxiety, depression, insomnia, and worse. It can also trigger health problems with the heart, health problems involving diabetes, early aging, risk of suicide can go up because of overconsumption of bad news. Holman is researching how coronavirus news is impacting people's health. What's particularly concerning is how incessant and multifaceted the news is. And I think that's a big difference between now and 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. We didn't have the mass media updating us they have a need to update us every 3 seconds as to what's happening. So how much news is enough news? Well, that depends on the person, I guess. Holman recommended choosing 1 or 2 news sources that are reliable and reputable. And just watch for a little bit. Check in a couple of times a day, suggests Holman. A couple of times a day is different than 10,000 times an hour. Holman says, get the information you need and don't keep going back to it. Considering how gruesome content can have a greater impact on mental health, try to skip unsettling images and upsetting images. Reef says it's important to focus on the facts and keep in mind that the news typically covers negative news. I've said that forever. Almost 30 years in the media. I've seen it firsthand. I know what I'm talking about. They focus on, I'm glad the Huffington Post did this story. These stories typically focus on the number of deaths and new cases, but not the positive outcomes or the context of the new cases. Right? You could have 1,000 new cases every hour, and if none of those people get sick or get in contact with other people and make them sick, then it doesn't really matter that they've contracted it. I mean, when you think about it, right? It doesn't really matter. It's like saying if I have a red mark on my face, I could drop dead suddenly. If I have a red mark across my forehead, it means I have the potential to drop dead all of a sudden. And if they find 20,000 people today with red marks on their forehead, you say, oh my God, they could drop dead. But yes, but it's possible that not one of those 20,000 will drop dead. In which case it's irrelevant that they have a red mark on their forehead. It only matters if they drop dead, right? I mean, think about it. I've given this example as well. Nobody else wants to use rational thinking, so I'll be the one. What is worse? Tell me this. What is worse? Let's say you have 2 islands you can be on. You have one island with 25 people that are sick with an illness. I don't want to say COVID-19 because it'll get people confused that I'm saying things that I'm not saying. So let's say they have ailment X. Ailment X on island 1. And there's 25 people on this semi-deserted island, right? And 24 of them have died from the disease. 25 people on the island. They've all gotten sick. 24 people have died from it. Then you have an island number 2, with 1 million people on it. And 999,000, right? 999 have the illness. 1 person has died. Which island would you rather be on? The one with fewer infections, but with almost 100% death rate? Or the one with 1 million people who are sick, but only 1 death? I mean, we just have to ask ourselves this. It's rational. It's like the other example I give is if the headline, if I were to call you and say, your mother was in a car accident, and that's all I told you. I left you a voicemail. Your mother was in a car accident. Call me back. That's not very helpful. You got to wait till you have more details, I think, because the person could have a heart attack worrying about mom being in a car accident. The car accident might have been that dad wasn't looking when he backed out of the Target parking lot, and there was a tiny little fender bender, no marks on either car. They didn't even exchange insurance. Nothing happened. They were fine. No whiplash. No police were called. No ambulance was needed. They were fine. But mom was still in a car accident, right? That's still an accident. Or mom could have gone flying 100 feet through the windshield, and worst case scenario, right? Mom was in a car accident could mean any number of things. It could mean that mom wasn't paying attention and she bumped the car in front of her because she didn't notice traffic had stopped in front of her. That's a car accident. So give people the details of it. Telling people that somebody is tested positive, but they're in great health, they're laughing, they're in good spirits, they're self-isolating, they're recovering at home. That's not the same thing as somebody who gets it and then is on a ventilator and dies 5 minutes later. It's not the same thing. So focus on the facts. Remember that the media covers negative news. They do that. They've always done it. They cover the good too, but for some reason they think you just fixate on the bad. And maybe you do. Maybe everyone is to blame for this. Maybe if we stop watching the freaking news 24/7 and the ratings plummeted like they should for most of these networks, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, how come those stupid memes are so popular? Well, because you're looking at them, stupid. Right? I mean, like, why is that video like people like jumping up and down off of roofs? Why are those so popular? People shouldn't make those videos. They make those videos because they're getting rich off of them. There are people who are rich on YouTube being absolute freaking morons. And if we just stopped watching those videos, if we just had a little self-control and said, you know what, I'm not going to keep watching these teenagers jumping from rooftop to rooftop, maybe if they had 6 views instead of 60 million, they wouldn't be jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Right? I mean, you get a reaction. It's like the bully poking you in the back. The minute, if you keep saying, stop it, don't do that to me anymore, it bothers me, stop doing that, the bully will keep poking you forever. The bully pokes you in the back, and you do one of 2 things. You ignore the bully or you bust their teeth out of their head, the bully will stop. The bully will stop. I'm not advocating violence here, but I'm telling you, if you keep responding to what the bully is doing, that's what the bully wants. The bully feeds off the reaction. If you're reactionary every time the bully pokes you on the back of the head or flicks you in the ear, the bully's going to keep doing it because they're getting a rise out of you. The minute you say, okay, it kind of hurts a little bit, but I'm just going to grin and bear it in class, I'm going to ignore the bully will find somebody else. The bully will find somebody else. Or in the olden days, the bully would have gotten all their teeth knocked out of their head and they'd stop bullying people. That's how the old days used to work. But I'm not advocating violence. I'm just telling you the way things were. So there you go. There's your free podcast, the Spencer Hughes Positivity Podcast. Stop ODing on the news. Okay? It has long-term effects on your health. And you don't want to be scared silly every second of the day. So those are reasons enough. It hurts your health. And it makes you scared every second of the day. So why do it to yourself? Join this podcast instead. There's a lot of great positivity and great energy coming out of this podcast, and you can get onto it for as little as $1 a month. Not $1 a day, $1 a month, 3 pennies a day. How's that? Join it at patreon.com/Spencer Hughes. I just gave you 17 minutes of my life for free, and I was happy to do it. And remember, the free version of this is on it's on Patreon, but it's also on Spreaker. It's on iTunes. It's on Google Podcasts. It is on Spotify. It's wherever you can find your favorite podcasts, the free version. I do them maybe once a week. Maybe I'll start doing them a couple times a week if I have time. I'm back to my day job again, so my days are very long again. So I have to spend the bulk of my time for the paid content for my subscribers who are paying to hear this stuff. But I will do free stuff every once in a while. And if you like what you hear and you want to support positivity and you want to support good energy and you want to say enough is enough with the doom and gloom bullshit coming out of the mainstream networks and news, then I invite you to join me. Patreon.com/Spencer Hughes. In the meantime, best thing you can do to help promote this is to share this audio with everyone you know. It's free. It's downloadable. Share it with your friends. Send it in an email. Post it on your social media. Do whatever you want with it. Thanks a lot, my friends, for listening to Hughes from the Heart.